Donald Trump is now claiming that he does not even know how he made $2 billion on crypto schemes during his first year in office. He was asked during an interview on CNBC. So, it seems outsized, is what the MAGA CNBC host Joe Kiernan said. So were you aware of that? And then Donald Trump said, even if I did, I'm a businessman, but I don't know. I don't focus on those things. I keep that outside. My kids know a lot about crypto, but it's really good for the country and it keeps us competitive against China. You making $2 billion at least on crypto schemes is good for the country against China. Then he said, I keep all my stocks in blind trust. Doesn't look like that. We're learning more details as well. I mean, NBC is reporting that right before Donald Trump paused some of his tariffs against the world after Liberation Day, that's when he made like close to 400 stock trades for tens of millions of dollars, right before the market did really good, after he crashed the market, like literally creating the dip and then buying the dip right there. One of the points I want to make, though, is sure, he may be in the Oval Office, but these are stock trades and conduct taking place in his personal capacity. And I don't think it's a coincidence that with all of this kind of criminality, blatant criminality that's coming out there, that it's also the same week that Special Counsel Jack Smith also just said, hey, here I am. I'm here, by the way, I'm not really intimidated. I just think it's a sign of law and order. And people are saying there's going to be a time when this regime is over, when this regime is gone, and accountability is going to begin. This is how they're trying to play it on state regime media, which calls itself Fox. They're trying to be like, yeah, he's a businessman and he's made a lot of money. I think for most people out there, this is what state regime media says, it's a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. They realize one, people are livid about this. This is not, they want to make this a one-day story or, a typical Trump news cycle, or as J.D. Vance said when comparing, the current regime to Richard Nixon, saying, Watergate wouldn't even last in a 12-hour news cycle. Things just don't even stick. I think this is sticking. I think people are pissed because Donald Trump's making billions of dollars that we know about. There's probably tens of billions of dollars more, while the American people are suffering. And while it feels like for most Americans that we're going through a massive recession or a Great Depression, but all these Trump regime people say, yeah, that's a K-shaped economy. You may be on the bottom of the K and we're on the top of the K, but that's business. And people are saying enough is enough of this. You've made how many billions of dollars? So Fox wants to downplay it. But one of the big issues is that this type of blatant securities violations, this is some Bernie Madoff stuff, right? I mean, this is some, in my opinion, this is some massive, when there was an SEC functioning, this was something that they would pounce on in a moment. We know the current SEC isn't going to do it, but a future one may. Future prosecutors would, I think, look to this as one of the very first things. Here, let me just show you what they're saying on state regime. Let's play it.
But the fact that he took in, I think, $1.2 billion in crypto income in his first year of his presidency, there's no suggestion from anybody that I've saw in any of the reporting that anything illegal is going on. But Britt, it certainly is eye-popping.
No, it is, John, and I think that the right word for this is unseemly for a president to profit while in office. Now, it's not fair to say that he's profited from the office, although, that's surely going to be subject to investigation, particularly if the Democrats get control of one or both branches of Congress. But if you wanted seemliness in the White House, Donald Trump was not your man. And if you wanted a guy that wasn't very rich in the White House, he wasn't your man for that either. The fact is, he's a very rich guy, and when you hold the kind of holdings he has, you do get richer. This amount from crypto seems breathtaking, but as the point was made by you and by Scott Bessent, not illegal.
Yeah, these aren't holdings that he had that just so happened to compound while he was in office. These were holdings he created and made by creating dips in the market through his own malicious behavior and then buying the dips that he personally created. Then when these pretend reporters say there's no reporting to suggest, well, that should be your job. Let me make the suggestion right now, and let me make it very clear that in my opinion, this goes far beyond unseemly. Let me also suggest, Brit Hume, that when you say something like that, anything you say for the rest of your life and that precedes that shows that you're an utter hack and you have zero credibility. If you're like, no one suggests there's anything questionable about this. Everybody seems to say it's just a little bit unseemly. No, it's more than unseemly. It is the height of corruption. And then you layer in the fact that there were foreign countries that were major investors in all of this stuff as well. And it isn't hypothetical. Did this impact war and peace? Oh, no, it did. Why do you think Qatar and Pakistan are the lead mediators in this and have this role? Why do you think UAE was treated a certain way? Why do you think that these other Arab nations are treated certain ways based on Donald Trump's personal pecuniary interest? Heck, this past week, he talked about Micron. He owns Micron. He owns Micron stock. And he said, Micron has agreed to put $250 million into Trump accounts. First off, how dare you call money that's going to children investment accounts Trump accounts? Also, that money is going back into the stock market to prop up companies like Micron. Also, under the CHIPS Act, Micron got like $3 billion to $5 billion subsidized by taxpayers. So now they've kicked back $250 to a Trump account that goes back into the market. I mean, that's the scheme here. It sounds kind of more than unseemly to me. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast, and Talking Feds Substack. I want to not just to cover the story, not just also to cover the fact that I don't believe Trump has immunity for his own personal trades, his own personal conduct. I think this is a big deal and a big story that they intentionally tried to tuck it away in a July 4th news cycle, using Fox to kind of dampen it down, hoping this is just a 1 or 2 day thing. And Harry, it's incumbent upon us as reporters. What Brit Hume did there is more than just like corrupt. I mean, to me, that's complicit in all of this. It's staring you in the face. It's like watching a murder and saying, no one really cares about that taking place. It just is what it is. What do you make of it, Harry?
Yeah, look, that's the point. Yes, reporters should be digging deep and putting the pieces together, but give me a break. What is 100% clear is that this failed, multiple bankrupt businessman has made this money because he is the president of the United States. And that principle is very clear in the Constitution. We call it the Emoluments Clause, that you're not, and it really goes without saying, even if we didn't have that fancy word, you can't exploit your office for private gain. And, it's not a complicated principle. That money that he's siphoning off belongs to, if anyone, the people of the United States. What he's doing is leveraging the fact of his office to shake down or siphon off or take his little skim cut as a mob leader might. Where would this money otherwise have come from? And the notion that it's all in blind trust. I mean, you've reported this before. You were all over this at the beginning of the year, his pattern of trades all of a sudden, proliferating by the dozens. This is one of the things, Ben, that in a different administration, we would be, or administration in a different Congress, people would be right away saying, this is impeachable. You have taken $2 billion in a way that you had no business taking, and moreover, you're taking it from the American people one way or another, and probably in multiple ways. You're doling out favors or you're shaking down in return for favors. That's the only business method Trump knows, is the sort of one-on-one retail feather my nest and maybe we can make this deal or that. So it is just completely incandescently improper, however you slice it. Then in addition, yes, reporters need to roll up their sleeves and figure out where it went and how and when the transfers occurred. But we don't need that to know that what he's doing is profiting, and I mean to huge amounts. It's a guy, as I said, who's paid no taxes for years, always has gone bankrupt. it is just clearly something that he does from exploitation, improper exploitation of his public office. Okay, now, but you ask, what about possible criminal liability? And this is something we tend to forget. I mean, it was so breathtakingly broad, the immunity opinion of the Supreme Court a few years ago, and it even included all these things about evidence you can't use. But that case went back to Judge Chutkan to make the determination that even the Supreme Court had left room for, namely, are you acting in your official capacity? Because if not, the immunity opinion doesn't apply to you. What is the argument? That in raking off $2 billion, he somehow, I mean, it's almost indefensible, right? To actually say, oh, I was in my official capacity is to cop to a huge emolument violation, right? I'm in my official capacity. That's how my bank account grew by $2 billion. I don't see how that possibly flies with the constitutional scheme, any kinds of ways that you have to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, his core responsibility, and which is, by the way, the trigger for all the things the Supreme Court says again and again. He gets this special power, Article 2, President's executive power. This, under any conception of the executive power, this lining your pockets to the tune of billions of dollars is clearly beyond the pale of constitutional responsibility, and possibly, this is something you have to dig for, but possibly criminal as well.
We'll be following this. Look, the reality is Democrats will, upon taking over the House of Representatives, investigate, build the foundation, call witnesses. And this is one of the reasons the Trump regime is terrified of Democrats taking over control and getting subpoena power here. But that'll also be building for a future administration. It's pretty easy to look into where these trades are coming from. You know, it's you can trace it. You know, the crypto is a little more difficult to kind of find, but it's easier to see where these investment accounts are putting their money in and seeing the unusual trades. And the SEC in the past was very good at doing that. Not this current SEC that doesn't care about, anything, so we'll keep everybody posted, but that's going to be the major 2028 to 2032 type of story, assuming a Democrat takes over, and is willing, in the words of my friend Brian Tyler Cohen, to actually wield power strongly and not be, fearful of, all right, well, now we're just going to have to appease this thing. It'll be an interesting thing. Harry,
one quick point, though. Yes, that's what a political wielder of power should do. But this is right down the middle of the prosecutor's credo. Follow the money. You start with that $2 billion and you start to work backwards here and there. And I guarantee you, I shouldn't be so cavalier about things that must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But there is no way economically to account for that $2 billion extra in his bank book, other than one way or another siphoning off money and value that belongs to the people of the United States. That's absolutely the kind of transaction here. How many steps, how the path worked, that's to figure out. But this $2 billion is our $2 billion till it was appropriated.
Yeah, and you just take a look at some of the data. And a lot of those investments or meme coin companies, Trump makes $2 billion, the investors lose $2 billion. The Trump meme coin, World Liberty Financial, Trump makes money, investors down 78%. So when you see numbers sometimes like down 15%, him up 30%, that's usually red flags. I mean, these numbers are just, as you and I know, who have handled cases like this and big securities class actions. Again, it's outrageous. Everybody hit subscribe here. More importantly, subscribe to Harry Litman's channel. It's called Talking Feds. Search Talking Feds right now on YouTube. Search Talking Feds. Subscribe to Talking Feds. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben. Happy July 4th to all.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com, You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.